everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's time to talk about all of the news on Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Not all the news, obviously. Tom covered some of the news in his video, but there's more. So, hiya. There are quite a few big stories to talk about nonetheless, so without any further ado, let's take a look at those lovely headlines. First of all, we discussed the reason a prominent WWE superstar wasn't on SmackDown last week. Next up, WWE have countered a trademark claim made by two recently released superstars. And finally, a WWE legend and one of the biggest wrestlers of all time is set to compete against WWE in the TV ratings. So first of all, let's talk about that WWE superstar who wasn't on SmackDown last week and the reason behind that. First of all, the person we're talking about in question is the Intercontinental Champion, Sami Zayn. Now, if you saw SmackDown last week, you'll know that Zayn's henchmen, Nakamura and Cesaro, they were there, and they took out Daniel Bryan on the outside during Drew Gulak's match. Gulak went on to lose the match, and I questioned why. I didn't really know why Nakamura and Cesaro were doing this, because, quite simply, Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak had been foiled by Sami Zayn and his boys when Sami Zayn beat Bryan at WrestleMania, so why continue the beef? And I just chalked this up to limited numbers at the time, I suppose. We need to get Daniel Bryan out of there. He was recently feuding with these boys. Let's just put them in there. But now reports have emerged to suggest that Sami Zayn actually didn't turn up deliberately. He chose to stay away from those tapings. This comes courtesy of Dave Meltzer, who reports that the reason Sami Zayn wasn't on SmackDown this past week is that he made the choice not to come in, which everyone was told that they had the option to do, by the way. But apparently, according to Meltzer, Zayn was originally meant to be a part of the show. But if there was someone who wasn't scheduled to be part of the show, even in name, that man would certainly be Roman Reigns. Like Sami Zayn, we know that he's chosen to step away from WWE, and his decision is just entirely commendable because obviously he's at health risk, he wants to keep people safe around him. You've got to fully agree with Roman Reigns' decision. Let me say that first off the bat before I then report what else has been said. That's because I also found something very curious that Meltzer reported, which was just dropped really casually in there, and I don't know if this has been reported before and I've just personally missed it, but yeah, Meltzer says that Reigns, whose name is not allowed to be mentioned on television, is listed as one of the stars of a comedy movie called The Wrong Missy, starring David Spade. The movie was filmed last year, but will be released on Netflix in May. Right, that doesn't matter, we're not talking about that David Spade film. Reigns' name isn't allowed to be mentioned on WWE TV. But on the other hand, are they really ever shy about doing that in terms of like Brock Lesnar, who they mention all the time, even if he takes huge gaps between title defenses, back when he was champion, of course? No, they mention him all the time. The problem here is that obviously what I'm trying to suggest is that there is a chance that WWE and Roman Reigns could be on bad terms. And if that's the case, then you just have to fully come down on the side of Roman Reigns. I don't understand why they'd be on bad terms with him, but then again, WWE don't always make logical decisions, do they? I mean, would you put it past Vince McMahon to be annoyed at Roman Reigns for walking out on WrestleMania and not listening to any sort of rhyme or reason as to why Roman's decision was a good one? I'm not going to answer that question, I'll just let you be the judge. Meltzer also pointed out that a recent Make-A-Wish video didn't show Roman Reigns at all. There were various different superstars doing Make-A-Wishes and stuff, and Roman wasn't in the video, whereas Meltzer has quite correctly pointed out, in previous recent Make-A-Wish videos, Roman has been highly featured, arguably as much or maybe even more than any other superstar on the current roster. Just on the topic as well of the autonomy of WWE's wrestlers, Meltzer is also reporting that apparently that story that was floating around, reported by WrestleVote and a few other sources, is false. So that story was the idea that anybody who asks WWE for a release, pretty much, they'll get it granted straight away. That caused a bit of a stir when it was reported a little while ago, but Meltzer has taken a conflicting view of that. He's saying that he's heard from two different sources that it's actually false. So I don't know which one's true on that one. I mean, obviously you have to lean towards Meltzer because he's the more respected and older and probably has the better sources out of the two. But then WrestleVotes have been correct on a lot of things in the past, things that seemed like so unlikely and then did come true later on. So maybe they're just talking to different people and there's conflicting stuff going on in WWE backstage. It is a bit of a panic time, obviously. Next up, WWE have requested 90-day extensions on a few trademarks made by the team formerly known, of course, as the Revival. Yes, as you may know, Dash and Dawson, or Cash and Harwood as they are now known, filed a number of trademarks for various little phrases and slogans and stuff associated with their brand after leaving WWE. Now, according to PW Insider, there were 3 trademarks in particular that WWE seemed keen on delaying, and they were, I'm about to read them in just a sec, get ready for this information. No flips, just fists, that's the first one. Obviously that I think that's the most important one. I'll get to that in a sec. The next one, hashtag FTRKO. Maybe that's the most interesting one. I'll get to that in a sec as well. And finally, Say Yeah, of course, which is their little song. And when they put out that preview video of their new, look and logo and music and everything, the music did feature a lot of Say Yeah, which is nice to see that carry over. So yeah, the reason that I think those are or at least two of those are very interesting. First of all, no flips, just fists. That is the term, of course, used by the Revival to demonstrate their own brand of tag team wrestling. It's back to basics, it's tactical, it's meaty, it's grinding. Those are some horrible words thrown together. Whereas in contrast, the Young Bucks as tag team is of course flippy and fun and fanciful and carefree. Nicer words thrown together. But why is that relevant to the Revival? Well, obviously the Revival and the Bucks over the past few years have been held up as these two shining beacons of opposite tag team styles, even though really I think they're closer than a lot of people think. But they've been held up as these two opposing forces, both of whom just happen to be like two of the best tag teams in the entire world. And obviously a lot of people were saying that it would be a dream match if the two teams ever met. And now, somehow, that is quite fairly likely to happen. So it's quite interesting and quite exciting for fans of both of those tag teams that the Revival have shown an interest in trademarking no flips, just fists, which you'd assume would be a slogan they'd be keen on using in a feud with a team like the Young Bucks. But the other one, which did genuinely take me by surprise there because I misread it when I was looking at these notes earlier, is hashtag FTRKO. Not forever the Revival, forever the Randall Keith Orton? The Revival obviously teamed with Randy Orton for a little bit in like a loose unofficial stable on SmackDown that everybody just absolutely loved. Everyone looked at that trio and went, it just works so well. Randy's, slow it down, back to basics, veteran style, the Revival with their tactics and everything, it just seemed to be perfect. And then, it didn't really end up going anywhere. And indeed, I think that maybe all three members of the stable, certainly the Dash and Dawson or Cash and Harwood, have expressed their disappointment that this didn't get to go any further because they all seem to be having a great time doing it. And they were great heels as well. I can't believe they've expressed an interest in trademarking that. That might just be... You know what, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Orton had just paid them to do that and gone, here's a few £100. Can you trademark this for me? It would be really funny and it would make WWE panic that I'm about to leave. I don't actually think Orton's gonna leave. That would be crazy. Next up, back to Meltzer for a quick update on where WWE are with their shooting schedule. They've been continuing to tape shows at the Performance Center, obviously in front of no fans, and it seems like they've reached another little point in the future. It looks like they're taking this kind of chunk by chunk, waiting for everything to blow over. So according to Meltzer, WWE have managed to record up to the 11th of May, which I believe is a Monday. I don't know whether he means that includes the Monday Night Raw that night or whether he means they've gone right up to that Raw but are yet to tape that Raw. But if it includes that Raw, that seems to be 2 weeks worth of content. So you've got, this Friday SmackDown, then you've got Raw, NXT, Raw, NXT, I'm confused now. So you've got this Friday SmackDown, right? I'm gonna do this again properly. Then you've got Raw, NXT, SmackDown, Raw. Okay, that's not quite 2 weeks. But if you'll excuse my excellent puzzle solving skills there, it is quite interesting to see WWE's shooting schedule here. Obviously a lot of people are still objecting to it, which is totally fair enough. It's a fair opinion to have. Other people are supporting it. I think that it's quite interesting to see that they're taking it in little sort of 10-day chunks or whatever, because it seems as though, or at least it seems to me anyway, like they're just trying to wait for this to kind of blow over and then probably will adopt the strategy of just jumping back into live shows with fans as soon as they're allowed to. I might be speculating too much there, but given the attitude of WWE during this pandemic, that seems to be the most likely course of action to me. I mean, we've seen examples of other businesses, even here in the UK, who are trying to get ahead of the competition once the pandemic's ended. Like Greggs and McDonald's are trying to are trialing reopening again soon for delivery, and the pub chain Wetherspoons is just it's run by a bad person. And with that in mind, actually, let's talk about what Vince McMahon actually had to say about the pandemic itself and the ongoing situation, or as he describes it, the new normal of things, which he did recently in a conference call. He talked a lot about adjustments that had to be made, and his attitude towards these adjustments, it's quite telling. Like the stuff that he says, it's quite interesting to hear what he has to say on the matter, basically. I'll jump into the quote. He said, as far as television is concerned, Raw and SmackDown, on Raw, we're off considerably. He's talking about ratings here. On SmackDown, we're pretty much even to where we started on January 1st, which Meltzer immediately pointed out, by the way, is just not true. That's not true about SmackDown's ratings. He goes on, Vince this is, and it's interesting to look at what happened once we went to, in a sense, our studio, which is our performance center. He goes on, it's a challenging environment, obviously, but nonetheless, you have to take advantage of that challenging environment, and overcoming negatives is obviously how to make it special. Sorry, that just slipped out there. So we've done certain things we're going to do more of. For instance, getting out of that environment and doing, in a sense, mini movies and assess it, like we did at WrestleMania, and many other personality profiles that we can do better than anyone. Digital and social was way up for the quarter, which is certainly a great parameter. So first of all, a few things there. Vince McMahon there saying that they do character profiles better than anyone else in the business. Has he not seen OTT in Ireland? Also, to be fair, WWE are very, very good at that sort of stuff. But then again, so are AEW. I think that New Japan probably are as well, but obviously a lot of the stuff gets lost in translation unless you get a dubbed version or a subtitled version of those video packages. But certainly, you know, WWE's are very good too. But the big takeaway for me here, apart from the fact that he's just lying about this, or kind of exaggerating how back to normal the SmackDown ratings are, I suppose. Apart from that, the big takeaway for me here is the fact that he seems keen, doesn't he, to do more of these cinematic mini movies. I mean, in fairness, you know, the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match both got really positive responses on the whole coming out of WrestleMania, especially, in fact, did they both? I mean, I personally prefer the Firefly Funhouse match, but I think that the Boneyard match got more of a positive response. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to know that Vince is probably keen to do more of this sort of stuff. Would you be keen to see WWE do more of this kind of stuff, even once things return to normal? I don't know. I don't know if I would. Let me know what you think, but I think that maybe once in a while, but I wouldn't want it to become like a super regular part of our, you know, our weekly product. And finally, oh my God, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. We've got some news regarding The Rock, everyone. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, when I said like a former WWE Superstar legend is going up against Raw in the ratings, that's The Rock. That's The Rock. And it's not just the show that he's presenting, it's the show that he produces as well. This comes after news that NBC will be airing The Rock's Titan Games reality show on Monday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. I'm assuming 8 to 9 Eastern there. Monday night, prime time. Obviously, you might be thinking, that sounds familiar, and that's because it's when Monday Night Raw is on. Come on, guys, keep up. But it's taken up an even bigger time slot in its first week. The first week's going to air from 8 till 10 p.m. because it's the season premiere. The first season of the show averaged 6 million viewers, so it's fair to say they pull in quite a bit and could be a bit damaging to Monday Night Raw's ratings. We'll have to wait and see whether that's the case. Also, this could come as a bit of a shock to WWE, purely because it wasn't expected that this show would air, or this season of the Titan Games would air so soon, but with no sports on TV, I guess the network felt like it was a good idea to put it on now, which I do see the logic behind. And besides The Rock, former WWE writer Brian Gewirtz is also a head producer on the show. So if you're interested in reality, physically challenging reality television with Titans, then check out the Titan Games, presented by The Rock. We all know and love him. And that's it for today's news video. Thank you very much for watching. My recommendation is a Rock match, because you can't go wrong sometimes with a Rock match, can you? Now, one of my favorite matches ever is the WrestleMania X7 match between The Rock and Austin, but I'm actually going to go for their third match at WrestleMania, the third in their WrestleMania trilogy. So Rock Austin 3 is my recommendation for today. It's got a bit of a different level of poignancy to the second one, even though the second one overall is my favorite. The third one tells quite a different story, and it's really nice in a way, in a strange way. So that's my recommendation for today. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought about any of the stories down in the comment section below, and stay safe out there, keep positive, and I'll see you very soon.